Sunday, June 10th. Laura has been out of town all weekend. She's been in Washington, D.C. and Philadelphia on a business trip, a conference, or a series of conferences. So I'm here by myself at the Hotel Fan Todd, reliving, in a sense, my miserable single days, only with slightly better cooking skills. Friday night, I had grilled tuna steak and grilled halibut steak. Didn't eat the whole things. I just grilled them both and had a little bit of each, and then fridged the rest for leftovers. Cooking fish steaks was just something I'd never done before and figured I needed to learn how to do, so I learned how to do it. Super easy and very tasty. I mean, with just salt and pepper and olive oil, easy. Tonight I'm roasting a duck. Another thing that I wanted to try, but was unsure about. I've roasted whole chickens before. I've done that a few times now. It's pretty easy and very delicious. I thought a duck would be sort of the same, and so far it kind of is, but with a few key differences. When you buy a whole chicken from the farmer's market, it's a large, when you're preparing it, it's a largely bloodless affair. You have the packet of giblets, and there's the neck. You snip them off, and it's all pretty clean and not very gory. The duck, though, that I bought, it was like a torture porn film. I snipped it open, and blood and organ fluids just poured out for a half an hour while I held it over the sink like some sort of Aztec priest. It was pretty gruesome. And the whole duck, of course, anyone who's watching, who has roasted a duck before knows that a duck just comes cocooned in a massive layer of duck fat. So this makes it very different to roast the bird. But you have to roast it in a certain way such that the skin gets crispy. All the duck recipes I consulted said, you have to flip it every so often so that the front and the back get roasted and crispy, and so that's what duck recipes seem to rely upon, or seem to hinge upon, this flipping of the duck corpse. So I'm looking forward to that. Duck is as close as I've come to red meat in the past decade or so. I don't eat red meat. Not for ideological reasons, it just doesn't agree with me. Or it didn't agree with me 10 years ago and I stopped eating it and I don't miss it. But I've had some extremely tasty duck in restaurants that has tasted for all intents and purposes like steak. Goes beautifully with heavy red wines and is just absolutely succulent. And anyway, whatever. So I'd like to try making that at home. Oddly, when I think about it, I guess it's like the best duck I've had in restaurants, the most steak-like duck I've had in restaurants, has always been in Florida. I don't know if that has to do with Floridian ducks, or if it's just coincidence that I happen to go to restaurants in some slightly fancy restaurants in Florida and order the duck. Part of me thinks it is coincidence because both times it was on the menu as, duck two ways, which is a trendy thing, I guess, now, where, you have just a regular roasted duck on one part of your plate, and on the other part of the plate you have duck confit of some sort. I had this in both Punta Gorda, Florida, where my parents live, and in Jacksonville, Florida, where Laura and I stopped on a road trip down to Punta Gorda. And, so the duck two ways, whatever. It was good and steaky. It reminded me of my memories of steak from my steak eating days. And if I can recapture that with some Canadian duck, I'll be happy. A thing about Canadian duck is that, you know, since in Canada everything comes in bilingual packaging, even at the farmer's market, this duck came in bilingual packaging. It has the French word for duck on it, which is canard, C-A-N-A-R-D. In French it's canard, I'm sure. You don't say the D. Canard. But it just reminds me of the fact that in English the word canard is a slightly old-fashioned expression for an unbelievable story, a hoax, a joke, a lie, perhaps most often encapsulated in a phrase, "that old canard." I looked it up in the OED. The OED says that it comes from a very old French expression from like the 1600s, which is to sell half a duck. Vendre un canard de moitié. Either to half sell a duck or to sell half a duck. And at some point in the interceding centuries, the moiety got left off and the sell got left off, and so you were just left with, it's a duck. That story you told me is a duck. Because to sell half a duck, according to this archaic expression, is not to sell it at all, not to buy it at all. If you bought half a duck, you're a sucker. I'm not sure it really makes sense, but in the 1600s maybe it did. This is all true.